Imagine living your entire life believing that you have total control over your thoughts, your choices, and even the reality around you. And then discovering that, in fact, every detail of your perception has been manipulated since the moment you were born. Now, what if I told you that the CIA has known this for decades? That a leaked, ultra-secret document exposes the exact way the human mind can be influenced, reprogrammed, and even used to manipulate the very structure of reality. This document, called Analysis and Assessment of Gateway Process, is not a conspiracy theory. It is part of a real CIA program, directly connected to the infamous MK-Ultra, a project of psychological experiments conducted during the Cold War, in which civilians and soldiers were tested, often without the slightest consent, in a desperate effort to discover how to control the human mind. But in the midst of this research, CIA agents stumbled upon something that would change everything. They discovered that reality is not what it seems. This leaked document discusses techniques capable of bending space-time, altering the perception of matter, and perhaps most frighteningly, accessing a hidden layer of existence that most people have never realized exists. Why would the CIA invest so many resources in this? What were they really trying to achieve? And most importantly, is this same mental technology being used against you right now without you even realizing it? This video will reveal everything. We will break down this document in detail, expose its connections to dark government experiments, and by the end, you will never look at reality the same way again. The truth has been hidden from you for too long. Now it's time to discover what they don't want you to know. Get ready, because after this video, you will never be the same. Welcome to Occultum Veritas. The Cold War was not just a dispute over weapons and territories, but a psychological war where the greatest trump card was the control of the human mind. The great powers knew that true power did not lie solely in nuclear bombs or military strategies, but in the ability to manipulate perceptions, emotions, and thoughts. It was in this context that the CIA initiated one of the most disturbing experiments ever recorded, the MK-Ultra project. The goal? To create mind control techniques that could turn any individual into a programmable puppet, someone who could follow commands without questioning, without remembering, and without realizing they were being manipulated. What began as research on interrogation and psychological resistance quickly transformed into something much darker. For years, hundreds of people were used as guinea pigs without their consent. Civilians, soldiers, prisoners, psychiatric hospital patients, and even children were subjected to brutal experiments that defied any ethical limits. They were exposed to high doses of LSD, subjected to prolonged sessions of hypnosis, electroshocks, extreme sensory deprivation, and psychological torture. CIA scientists were obsessed with the idea of breaking the human mind and reconstructing it in a completely new way. They wanted to understand how far they could go. Could they erase someone's memory and replace it with another? Could they make a person commit murder without them even knowing they were being controlled? Could they plant false realities within an individual's mind and make them believe that it had always been true? The accounts of the victims of these experiments are disturbing. People who entered the tests as healthy individuals came out completely destroyed. Many spent the rest of their lives in psychiatric hospitals with no memory of who they were before. Others committed suicide shortly after the experiments. The CIA, of course, tried to erase all traces. When the scandal came to light in the 1970s, hundreds of documents were burned before they could be investigated. What remained were only fragments, pieces of a story that was never fully revealed. But what few know is that amid this research, the CIA made a discovery that would change everything. They realized that the human mind was not just a set of neurons and synapses. There was something much greater behind it. They were beginning to perceive that human consciousness might not be confined to the physical body, that perhaps there was a way to access realities beyond space-time. It was at this moment that the Gateway Process was born, a document that not only studied mind control, but also the possibility of hacking reality itself. What if the mind could be used to manipulate space-time? What if consciousness could be trained to access dimensions that are normally invisible? These were not abstract questions. They were issues being taken seriously by government agents. This leaked document is not just a historical curiosity. It may be proof that the reality we perceive could be manipulated in ways we never imagined. The CIA not only wanted to understand how to control the human mind, they wanted to discover how to control reality itself. And if they have been researching this for decades, the question remains, what have they really discovered? And how might this be used against you right now? The Gateway Process was not just another CIA experiment. It was something different, something that transcended the limits of conventional science and entered the realm of the occult, metaphysics, and the manipulation of the very structure of reality. The leaked document reveals that CIA scientists were exploring techniques capable of expanding human consciousness in ways that were previously considered impossible. They wanted to understand if the mind could be trained to access altered states of perception, traverse dimensions, and even manipulate space-time. This was not merely philosophical speculation. It was a study conducted with scientific rigor and a very clear purpose: to discover if reality could be hacked. The research was conducted by the Monroe Institute, a center specialized in studies on consciousness and out-of-body experiences. Robert Monroe, the founder of the institute, claimed that it was possible to achieve a mental state called hemispheric synchronization, where the two hemispheres of the brain enter perfect harmony, allowing the individual to access an expanded level of perception. According to the CIA report, this technique could enable a person to transcend the limitations of the physical body and connect with a universal field of information, something that government scientists began to refer to as the matrix of reality. The document describes that when a person reaches this state, their brain begins to operate at specific frequencies that resonate with the patterns of the very structure of the universe. This means that consciousness would not be confined to the brain or the physical body, but rather connected to a broader field of energy that governs all existence. The CIA began to realize that this knowledge could be used for much more than just spiritual exploration. If the human mind was capable of altering its perception of reality, then, in theory, it could also shape the very reality around it. The report suggests that individuals trained in the Gateway Process could access hidden information, predict future events, and even interact with planes of existence that cannot be perceived in a normal state of consciousness. But the big question is, why was the CIA so interested in this? And how could they use this knowledge to gain power and control? This is where things start to get really disturbing. What started as a simple investigation into altered states of consciousness quickly transformed into something much larger. The CIA realized that the Gateway Process was not just a tool for accessing the human subconscious, but a way to decipher a hidden code that seemed to regulate all of reality. The leaked document reveals that the scientists involved in the experiments began to notice a pattern. The human brain, when trained to operate at specific frequencies, could interact directly with the fabric of the universe, as if it were tuning into a radio station that had always been there, but that few knew how to access. The explanation for this lay in quantum physics. The report describes that reality is not fixed, but rather a projection of vibrational patterns. Everything that exists, matter, thoughts, emotions, is formed by energy oscillating at different frequencies. What the CIA discovered is that human consciousness can, under certain conditions, adjust to these frequencies and alter how reality manifests. This means that the mind is not just a passive receiver, but an active agent capable of influencing the universe around it. The document mentions a concept called the universal hologram, suggesting that the universe, as we perceive it, is merely a projection of a larger field of information. This means that reality, like a hologram, can be reconfigured depending on how we interact with it. In simple terms, if you know how to adjust your mind to operate within this field, you can literally bend the rules of reality to your favor. The gateway process also reveals that altered states of consciousness may allow access to hidden layers of existence. The document mentions something called the absolute reference point, which would be the source of all energy and information in the universe. Scientists believed that by reaching a deep state of mental synchronization, an individual could connect to this point and access any information about the past, present, or future. This idea resembles the concept of Akashic records mentioned in ancient esoteric traditions, where all of humanity's knowledge would be stored in a kind of universal database. The discovery that the mind can directly interact with this matrix of reality posed a crucial question for the CIA. If human consciousness has this power, how could this information be used to manipulate the masses? If few people knew of the existence of this mechanism and how to use it, they could exert absolute control over those who remain ignorant. This paved the way for a new approach. Instead of merely studying these phenomena, why not use them to influence collective behavior and rewrite the perception of reality for billions of people without them even realizing it? It was at this moment that the CIA realized they were dealing with something much larger than individual mind control. They had found the keys to large-scale reality programming. The discovery that human consciousness can interact with the structure of the universe has opened doors to a much deeper level of control than simple mental conditioning. If the mind of an individual trained in the gateway process could access and influence reality, what would happen if this technique were applied collectively, without people knowing? The CIA realized that it no longer needed to just break an individual's mind and reprogram it. They could shape the perception of reality for an entire population by adjusting their mental frequencies without anyone noticing. The first step in this was to understand how the mass mind works. Governments and corporations have been using social engineering strategies for decades to influence collective behavior. But the gateway process showed that there was an even more advanced and efficient method: vibrational manipulation. The CIA report suggests that the human mind can be influenced by specific frequencies that alter emotional states and thought patterns. This means that by exposing large groups of people to certain stimuli, it would be possible to induce specific mental states: fear, conformity, passivity, or even states of excitement and collective euphoria. This explains why governments, media, and large corporations invest so much in creating visual and auditory stimuli that capture the attention of the masses. The use of colors, subliminal patterns, and especially sound and electromagnetic frequencies can literally program the perception of millions of people. There is a reason why commercial music operates at the tuning of 440 Hz, while studies indicate that lower frequencies, such as 432 Hz, promote more harmonious and balanced mental states. The same goes for the waves emitted by televisions, radios, and cell phones, all adjusted within specific ranges that keep the mind in a constant state of passive reception. The report mentions that when an individual achieves hemispheric synchronization, they become more resistant to these stimuli and can reconfigure their own perception of reality. But most people live in a state of mental disconnection, completely submerged in external programming that controls what they feel, think, and believe to be real. If the human mind can alter reality, but people never learn how to access this power, it means that this ability is being deliberately suppressed. And if you think this idea is exaggerated, look around you. Why is it that educational systems never teach about altered states of consciousness? Why is deep meditation, which could be a pathway to accessing these higher levels of perception, treated only as a relaxation tool instead of an advanced mental technology? Why does conventional science completely ignore studies on the influence of the mind on the structure of reality? The truth is that reality manipulation is already happening, and those who master these techniques have an absurd advantage over the general population. The CIA understood that by keeping the masses in a constant state of distraction, fear, and confusion, they would become incapable of realizing that their own perception of reality was being shaped externally. The true objective was never just to understand how the human mind works, but rather how to use it against those who do not know they are being manipulated. If the human mind has the power to interact directly with the structure of reality, then, in theory, reality can be shaped, manipulated, and reconfigured. But what happens when this knowledge falls into the wrong hands? The gateway process revealed that consciousness functions as a transmitter and receiver of information within a larger vibrational field, something that could be compared to software running within a cosmic operating system. If someone understands how this system operates, then they also understand how to hack it. The CIA realized that just as an individual can learn to access expanded states of consciousness to influence reality in their favor, this same principle could be used to restrict, manipulate, and reprogram collective perception. The most efficient way to ensure that people never perceive the true power of the mind is to keep them trapped in limited thought patterns, controlling their beliefs, their emotions, and, most importantly, their attention. The first step in this control is to overload the mind with distractions and irrelevant information. The CIA knew that attention is the key to creating reality because what you focus your mind on gains strength and manifests in your vibrational field. If millions of people are conditioned to direct their attention to superficial problems, meaningless entertainment, and a constant avalanche of sensory stimuli, they will never have the time or mental energy to realize they are being programmed. Today, this happens on a global scale. The digital age, with its social networks, addictive news cycles, and constant bombardment of information, did not arise by chance. It is a system designed to keep the population's mind in a state of passivity and automatic reception, incapable of questioning or altering its own reality. The second level of this control is the manipulation of collective vibration. The gateway process made it clear that the human mind is highly sensitive to frequencies and vibrational patterns. Knowing this, the controllers of the global narrative adjusted entire systems to ensure that people remain trapped in frequencies that induce specific emotional states. Fear, for example, is one of the lowest and most paralyzing vibrational states that exist. Entire societies are kept in continuous states of anxiety and insecurity through constant crises, artificial threats, and endless conflicts. This not only weakens people's ability to think critically, but also prevents them from accessing higher levels of perception. Furthermore, the very concept of objective reality is manipulated so that the masses believe the world is rigid, fixed, and unchangeable. Traditional science refuses to accept that consciousness has any influence over matter, even when experiments like the double slit in quantum physics have already proven that observation can alter the behavior of subatomic particles. The idea that external reality is independent of the human mind is one of the greatest illusions ever imposed on humanity. The CIA knew that if this knowledge became public, people could start using these techniques to reprogram their own lives, taking control of their energy and creating the reality they truly desire. Now think, how many times have you felt trapped in a repetitive cycle of events? How many times have you noticed patterns in your life that seem impossible to change? This happens because the programming of your mind has been intentionally set to operate within a limited field of possibilities. The true secret behind the gateway process is not just that the mind can access higher levels of reality, but that most people live trapped within a mental system designed to prevent them from doing so. If reality can be hacked, who is hacking yours? And more importantly, how can you regain control? If the CIA spent decades studying how to manipulate and program the human mind, it means there is a real method to access and modify reality itself. The difference between those who control and those who are controlled lies in the understanding of this process. The gateway process revealed that the mind can enter expanded states of consciousness where space-time can be manipulated, perception can be reconfigured, and the barriers between the individual and the universal field of information can be dissolved. This knowledge has been hidden from the public because those who master their own minds master their own reality. But the good news is that the key to this power has always been available. It has just been kept out of reach of the masses through distractions and disinformation. The first thing that needs to be understood is that the reality you experience is not fixed. It is a reflection of the state of your mind. Everything in the universe vibrates at specific frequencies, and what we call reality is actually an interpretation based on what we can perceive within those vibrational ranges. If you are operating in mental states of fear, anxiety, and doubt, your external reality will reflect that with chaotic situations, recurring problems, and blockages. But if you raise your vibration by reprogramming your mind to operate in higher states of clarity, intention, and focus, the reality around you will begin to reorganize to reflect that change. The gateway process demonstrated that the most effective way to alter mental states and access new perceptions is through hemispheric synchronization. This technique teaches the brain to operate at more harmonious frequencies, allowing both halves of the brain to work together in a balanced way. This can be achieved through practices such as deep meditation, the use of binaural sounds, and breath control. When the mind enters this state of synchronization, limiting patterns begin to dissolve, and the perception of reality expands. The CIA knew that this mental state was the key to accessing the true power of consciousness, which is why this knowledge was never widely disseminated. Another crucial point is learning to intentionally redirect your attention. Your attention is the most valuable currency you possess. Everything you focus your mind on grows, expands, and manifests in your experience. The reason modern society is designed to keep your attention fragmented and dispersed is that it prevents you from concentrating your energy on creating the reality you desire. You need to reclaim your attention and use it consciously. Start by eliminating unnecessary stimuli and setting aside moments in your day to direct your mind to what truly matters, whether through visualizations, affirmations, or simply becoming aware of the thoughts you nurture. Furthermore, it is essential to learn to retune your internal vibration. The reality you experience is directly connected to your energetic frequency. This means that changing your internal vibration alters how the universe responds to you. Techniques such as using specific sound frequencies, subconscious reprogramming, and even simple changes in your environment can have a profound impact on how your reality manifests. All of this was described in the studies of the gateway process, but it was intentionally obscured so that only a few had access to this knowledge. Finally, the most important thing you can do to reclaim your power is to question everything. The system is designed so that you never realize you are being manipulated. But now that you know what is happening, everything starts to make sense. You have been conditioned to believe that reality is immutable, that your mind is merely a passive receiver, that the world around you cannot be altered. But that is a lie. You no longer have to accept this programming. If the CIA spent decades studying how to control the human mind, then it means the human mind has immense power. A power they have always tried to hide. The only question that remains is, what will you do with this knowledge? If what the CIA discovered with the gateway process was shocking in the 1980s, imagine what they know now. Decades have passed since this document was written, and one thing is certain. They not only understood how the human mind can access and modify reality, but they also refined these techniques to shape collective perception in ways that go far beyond what anyone could imagine. The big question is, if this knowledge has been kept secret for so long, what is the true objective? What have they gained by hiding this information from the public? And more importantly, is this mental technology already being used against you right now? The answer becomes obvious when we look at the world around us. There has never been a moment in history when people were so distracted, so disconnected from their own minds, and so influenced by external forces. Reality is constantly sold to you through manufactured narratives, events that seem spontaneous but follow predictable patterns, crises that arise at just the right moment to keep the population in specific emotional states. All of this is a direct reflection of the discoveries that began with the gateway process. Modern mind control no longer requires interrogation rooms, hallucinogenic drugs, or psychological torture. It happens through the saturation of the mind with irrelevant information, the bombardment of visual and auditory stimuli, and the subtle psychological conditioning that makes people accept a manufactured reality as if it were the only option. But now you know the truth. Now you understand that the human mind has a potential that goes far beyond what has been taught. Now you know that reality is not something fixed, but rather something that can be shaped by your perception and intention. This knowledge has always been available to those who knew where to look, but it has been deliberately hidden from the majority. And if it has been hidden, it is because it represents a threat to those who wish to maintain control. The only question that remains now is, what are you going to do with this information? Are you going to continue accepting the reality that has been imposed on you? Or will you start to question, explore, and take control of your own mind? If you have made it this far, it means you have already taken the first step towards awakening. Now, it is up to you to decide what to do with this knowledge. If this video has opened your mind to a new perspective, imagine what else might be hidden from you. The truth goes far beyond what has been revealed here, and in the next video, you will discover how this manipulation connects to ancient secret societies and how they use this knowledge to shape the world in the shadows. Subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and click on the video that is appearing on the screen now to continue this investigation. Reality is malleable. but only for those who know how to control it. Are you ready to take the next step?